Hey, Shaman Manifesto here. It's been a hot minute, but I've been doing some stuff, leveling other classes and whatnot. And right here, we've got another Stockade solo. Not that impressive anymore, as a lot of classes are able to do it, especially if they're geared. Especially if they're geared. Like, I've seen some really good Son of Aragal pulls and stuff like that. But I just wanted to showcase how the Knight of Zoroth is able to do it. And here we go. So, firstly, I'm going to just go over, because this is a pre recorded video, going over my gear really quickly. Not all of it is the best, of course, but a lot of it is pretty good crafted gear. Knight of Zoroth is, of course, able to use mail gear, and their main stat is strength, making gearing a little bit easier. Though Guardian had their change come in recently, so they're actually able to use strength gear as well now, which is really nice. So up first here, we actually just wanted to hit a mob a little bit instead of pulling all the way in because we need just a little bit of rage to get going. So we can slap on Pestilence of War. Pestilence of War is basically one of the biggest reasons we can do this because first of all it's an AoE damage aura that lasts 30 seconds, so you can pull really well with it, and then each time it ticks on all these mobs, um, you actually end up doing a good amount of self-healing as well. And then when you pop Hellscream, for every target within range that has the Pestilence of War debuff on them, you'll end up healing for like 200 health per. So it doesn't take many at all for you to just get to full health. And you can see just how easy all of this is. Like most of the time, I probably wouldn't even have to pop Pestilence of War just because of the sheer amount of damage I'm doing, and that's partially to do with the fact that my gear is pretty okay. Especially the Whirlwind Axe. Like the Whirlwind Axe is able to do a lot of damage here. But as you can see, like I'm basically just melting everything around here. Hellish Rebuke also pretty good here. You can consider it almost like duty, where uh, you'll get hit and then you'll deal a lot of AoE damage. Meaning for this, I'm also using the tank stance of the spec because I wouldn't gain much from using the DPS spec. Maybe like a few more meat cleaver casts and stuff like that, but honestly, I'd rather just have the defensives so that I can take advantage of Pestilence of War more. Um, as opposed to my Guardian Stockade solo, what we saw there was me just running to the bosses, and honestly, you could do that. Like you can tell this is going incredibly smooth. Like I didn't have to do multiple takes for this one. This was just like my first one. I'm like, okay, well, this is already amazing, so I'll just stick with this. But I'm mostly just pulling everything on the sides to display like how good this actually is. Because like the clear time, even when I'm pulling everything instead of just rushing to the bosses, is still relatively good. The only issue I had with this run, in particular, well, running stuff on Knight of Zoroth at all right now is a little bit wonky. So there were some close calls, but that's mostly to do because there does seem to be a bug with Pestilence of War where it will randomly just get purged off of you or fade, I suppose. Um, so this results in things just like, well, the problem is that Pestilence of War has a cooldown, so it's not just like you can instantly reapply it, and it's got a range cost as well. So you can get into some pretty bad situations, especially if you don't notice it. Because like I don't have weak auras or anything, so I can't exactly track my Pestilence of War without just straight up looking at the top right corner of my screen, which unfortunately I have to do a lot more often because normally I'd just be able to rely on the like internal ticking of like the 30 seconds in my head. I'm not actively counting it, but like from instinct at this point, like I could be guessing pretty accurately about when it's about to fall off, and it also makes it easier to just like check every little once in a while. But because of the bug, I have to be checking like the top right corner of my screen constantly just to see if the buff is still up or not. And then you see right here, I was running around flaying some corpses so I can just be ready for the next pull with a little bit of rage so I could end up spending abilities because like there are ways to speed this up a little bit. Like if I flayed corpse more often, I'd have more rage, meaning more infernal strikes. So that's bound to my 3 key at the moment, meaning like more Hellfire and stuff like that. And you probably saw this again. I think this was another area where Pestilence of War fell off, or well, fell off unintentionally, and then I pressed Hellscream, which normally, well, hold on, it's my X bind, just for you to see, which normally would heal me to full, but instead, because Pestilence of War was off, it basically didn't do anything. Hellscream does have a heal attached to it, where it's, I think, 2% every second over 5, so 10% of your health total, which is nice, but it's nothing in comparison to a Pestilence of War heal, which will not only do damage to everything around me, because like it does do a good chunk of damage, it'll heal me to full. And then you see the Infernal Strike proccing the little fireballs that are raining from the sky. But yeah, all in all, I'd say Knight of Zoroth was actually a really fun and smooth solo experience. Son of Aragal does have spots where I think it struggles, just because I'd say the healing is fairly limited, especially because you have to be in combat and everything for that. And there's not much room for you to actually sort of play around with it. Like, it's basically just you spamming your main attack and then your bleed. And you're like, okay, your bleed heals you a little bit, and then your main attack, you're just spamming that to heal up. This feels like I actually get to make decisions with when and where I'm applying like my huge hits of healing. Especially since Pestilence of War is basically doing like the work of um, the Son of Aragal main ability just passively, while giving me room to also like DPS a little bit here and think about other things, and then just like having a few good chunks of solid AoE, as well as I think better built-in defensives, because like Hellish Rebuke as well, since I'm using the tank stance, will give me a damage reduction for a few seconds whenever I pop it. But yeah. As you can see, very solid clear, with the only close calls being the result of bugs at the moment. So hopefully you can appreciate what I've done here, and honestly, I'd highly recommend the Knights of Zoroth to a lot of people. It's pretty fun, especially thanks to the recent changes, so getting access to like the different pestilences and stuff like that. I'd highly recommend it. It's also a pretty standard like strength wielding class, which is honestly rare on Conquest of Azeroth, where most classes seem to be leaning towards agility or something along those lines. But this you can pretty effortlessly swap between tank and DPS with just a stance, because the stance just turns your strength into parry, block chance, and whatnot. Anyway, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you all around next time.